Hello, this is Jon Speelman with my twice a month column, and this one, it's number 129 in fact, and it is about Misha Tal. When I stream at twitch.tv/Jon Speelman, I sometimes ask people for suggestions, and a guy suggested that I do one on Tal. So I've started with a few preliminary remarks. I've said that you have to be in love with chess at some point to become a grandmaster, become a strong player, but it doesn't have to last. And I love chess still, but I don't adore it in the way I did when I was a kid. It's more like sort of a long-term marriage. So I love watching chess, I love playing chess, but it's not something that completely possesses me all the time. And I said that even the world's very best players don't have to be crazy about the game, though they tend to like winning. And we're very lucky at the moment we got Magnus Carlsen, who not only loves playing chess, but is also prepared to make, if not a fool of himself, he's certainly prepared at times to expose himself by losing games. He doesn't care if he loses the odd game of chess. And, there were people in the past who really thought losing when they were the world champion or something was terrible, but Carlsen just thinks it's part of the deal and gets on with it. So he plays bullet, for instance, quite a lot on the internet, and if you play bullet against strong players, you're going to lose. It just must happen. And then I said, well, Mikhail Botvinnik would never have played. Well, he didn't like blitz. He'd never have played bullet. He would have considered it an abomination. Sorry, I'm fiddling with this, just correcting some typos. But Misha Tal would. And then a couple of anecdotes from the interzonal tournament in Monte Tashco in Mexico in 1985, was it? I was playing, I got fairly close, I think I came fourth, but the top three qualified and I was never in much danger. It was won by Jan Timman ahead of Jesus Nogueras, the Cuban guy, and Tal was third. And a couple of things had happened. One was that early on in the tournament, Tal played Saeed, Ahmed Saeed from the UAE, who was not a great player. He was an IM of some sort, I guess. And Tal messed it up quite a lot. He should have beaten the guy by move 30 something. I've given the game. And then he reached the adjournment and he won it. And then when they had a post-mortem where Tal showed him how he should have drawn, it turned out during the post-mortem that they put the queenside pawns back in the wrong on the wrong squares when they resumed. And Saeed appealed. I think he should just have said, well, it didn't matter where the pawns were. Fair enough. I mean, I understand there'd been an accident, but I mean, it wasn't relevant to the result at all. But he did appeal, and Tal just said, okay, I'll play it again. And he beat him a different way. I don't know how he beat him the first time, but he beat him somehow the second time. And I've given that game. It was just Tal being very calm about this, actually. Later in the tournament, my second was Will Watson, who I think it's Boris Spassky once described as a drunken machine gunner, which was definitely a compliment, the way he played chess. He just sprayed bullets all over the board. Terrifying attacking player. And Will and I were having dinner. We had dinner. I'm not going to say who the player is. You can work it out maybe if you find out who the players were. We had dinner with one of the other players' seconds, and the player objected. I mean, it was a long tournament, and there we were. We had a chat with the guy, and he went back to his second, and there was a conversation which I've reproduced down here, which went in English, I should say. Are you happy? Are you bothering me? Are you happy? Are you bothering me? At which point he was sacked. And later in the year, I was Victor Korchnoi's second at Montpellier, and I got sacked a lot faster than that, though we didn't have that exact conversation. Right. After Monte Tashco, when Tal qualified, Will said could he play some blitz with him. And Tal said, yeah, sure, but wait until later, I'm going to be drinking. So Tal had his drink, and then what happened was that Will played him, and he was Will's hero. So Will didn't want to beat this guy who was a brilliant player when he was drunk out of his mind. So he made some draws and was polite, and didn't try to take pieces. And they had some sort of session. I might phone Will at some point and ask. I'm just going to check this is being recorded, because if it's not, it's a pain, and it is. Coach Moise I've got down here. And then Guillermo Garcia came up. He was a very strong player. He was a Cuban guy who won the World Open once. I think it was the World Open rather than the New York Open. It was one or t'other. Anyway, he died unfortunately in a car crash in 1990. He tried to play Tal. He tried to kill him, although Tal was drunk. And Tal, although he was stocious, if that's a nice English word meaning pissed, still managed to beat the guy, because his instinct was stronger than a very strong grandmaster's brain, basically. Just extraordinary. So Tal was a phenomenon. And then I thought, let's have a look at a couple of Tal games. And I've got one of the games from the World Championship match which he won in 1960 and an earlier game. And we'll look at the games. Here we go. So we start with the Saeed game. I'm not going to do very much. It was he played d5 rather than bishop b4. Okay, they reached a Queen's Gambit, declined exchange variation. Normally they play knight h5 nowadays in this position. And the bishops are exchanged and the game continues. And it goes something like knight h5, I've got the variation here, haven't I? Takes, knight e2, g6. You can play g4 if you want. Whichever side white castles, black will castle the same way. If long castles, I think you play something like knight f6 and knight g7 or something, and you get castled and you're sort of all right. Reasonably okay. Something that Ulf Andersson's played 500 million times, perfectly happily, and sometimes very strong players do quite bad things to black, but okay, it's a position. Anyway, they didn't do any of that. This is a tabia, one of the main lines of the opening, after knight f8, and rook ae1 was one of the moves they used to play. This is a line that was often... And obviously white has the initiative in the centre, but black has the better pawn structure. And I believe that if you do this well, I think I gave a game, did I, where black actually won Boo against Nakamura in Gibraltar. I mean, Nakamura would have known what he's doing, and basically this position is not very scary for black. I don't think you do it. Tal played a3. I mean, the other things you can do, you can go takes b4 if you want to, start a minority attack. And h3 is the main move nowadays, and that's Anatoly Karpov's move. One point being that if knight e4, you can play bishop f4. Of course, you can do other things. You can play, I don't know, knight h5 must be a move. I don't know, bishop b6 I think is probably quite a natural move. I think there's a game which I haven't given here. Karpov-Belyavsky was quite a famous game which Karpov won, but it was Karpov. The thing when Karpov won games, you have to remember it was Tolya Karpov, and he was absolutely terrifyingly strong at one point. This happened knight to there. Engines like takes knight g4, giving up h7 but attacking lots of things. But the guy, I mean, you'd have to be very brave to do that against Tal. This happened. And that's a bad move. I mean, it's quite a good idea to play in the centre, but what it does, f6 is possible, because if queen takes, you can swap and play knight e5 and you're going to win. And that means that you have to play f6. You need to be able to play queen f6 after f6. And now white has a massive attack. Very close to winning outright. And they played some moves. And the engines go ping and say this is totally winning, which isn't obvious actually. I mean, Tal was just trying to win the game. That's a bit lackadaisical, I think, a bit unnecessary. I don't know if he intended this to happen. Perhaps he did because he thought he was just winning, but need to be a little bit careful. Quite possibly intended this to happen. It's quite a pretty way to play, but there is Queen G8. And now White should have gone F7 first and then done this. And you get the game, your position you got in the game. After Queen F4, Saeed missed this thing. He missed Queen takes F7 check here, and then this excellent move. And you've managed to cover F8, which is bad luck for Black, and it should be a draw, this position. Presumably White doesn't have any big problems drawing it, but White also can't win. Anyway, what happened was they got this position, and I think it must have been at this moment. Maybe F6 was sealed, maybe Queen G4 was sealed, I don't know. And the pawns were put up wrong on A6 and B7, I presume they must have been, and they played it once. Tal won one way, and then the second time he won this way. Very pretty game. Actually, what he did was lovely. A lot of fiddling around. I don't know if Queen G5 is a slightly better move. Presumably Queen D6 check is a good answer. Okay. Oh, was Queen G5 here? You could still, no, you couldn't take and play Bishop G6 yet. Now when he does it, there's this beautiful move trapping the rook. And he resigned. And if the pawns had been on A6 and B7, it would have made no difference whatsoever. You'd go A5, B3, B6, G4, and Black would again be in absolute Zugzwang. So a pretty finish. I don't think I've changed this at all, have I? No, good. I'm trying not to change the PGN because it messes chess space around a bit. Second game is a game from the World Championship match, famous game. Sixth game, was it, of the 1960 when Tal won the title from Botvinnik, when he basically blew him away. And should we have it from Tal's point of view? Let's have it from Tal's point of view. So it's a King's Indian, G3 King's Indian. Botvinnik played D5. I mean, rook E1 is the main move, I think. Though probably Black takes and does something with his knight. If rook E8, then you play D5 and you claim that the rook is less well placed on E8 than on F8 because it doesn't support F5. So anyway, it's possible. Anyway, Botvinnik went to D5, which I think. The other thing is you can play C5 takes. Karpov did this a few times in the 1990s, and he won. But I mean, you know, he was Karpov, as we said. Okay. That's very active in this position, obviously. Got a pretty good version. That's a sensible move. I mean, knight h5. If this Tal disliked Queen e2, stopping f5, but you can just play Queen e8 then. But more relevantly, I think you can play knight b5 here, hitting a7 and d6. And probably you have to take that as Black, which is a bit of a shame. Not quite sure. I'm wondering if you play Queen b8 now, but okay. So they played some moves. Knight h5, and what I said is this is definitely what Black wants to play, and show the right thing to do against Botvinnik, who above all crave control of the position. But given that the tactics shouldn't quite work for Black after knight h5, then simply Queen d8 was perhaps better, theoretically speaking. And I'm going to change that th round. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, they played some more moves. round about here, actually a3 was a good move, queen b3, and I think you can perhaps nick on I think maybe you can take on a7 at this moment, I believe. Yeah, let's just put that. I'm going to change this again slightly. I think you can do this actually here, because now you don't have b6 and queen a5. But I believe this is supposed to be, if b6, there is, basically it doesn't work, allegedly. Okay, we can believe that. Though it's a little bit messy. I mean, Tal would have got something somehow. What happened was, I mean, the interesting thing is what happened. Now you mustn't go knight e4 now because of rook e4. And the queen protects the rook and you just win as black. That would be a silly way to play. So he went rook a1, and now Tal played a move which apparently caused such excitement that they had to clear the playing hall. He went knight f4. And I mean, well, if you start going backwards, you're going to be worse as black. So you can see that Tal would never have gone backwards against Botvinnik. He decided that Botvinnik's weakness was that he wasn't able to withstand extreme mess. He was a very logical player. And so knight f4 made a lot of sense, even though Tal suspected it might not work. Takes, bishop d2. a3, queen b3, bishop a7 was more or less a refutation. Rook a8, knight b5. I mean, this is really difficult, this stuff. Remember, all the time you've got queen e6 check. If you bishop e5, and now the excellent move, knight d4. This is a pretty difficult thing to do, actually. So if you play f3 check, you maybe even have queen e5, don't you? That probably wins. I don't know. And knight f3. So now he goes here, take, and White's basically winning here. White's got control. Black has a little bit of play, but it's foul. The whole thing is disgusting for black. Okay. I'm just going to change that as well, and black should have a K like that. Okay. But he went bishop d2, and now bishop b5 actually is okay. Tal's original intention, f3 takes, knight d1, and both queen takes is possibly, you can see my terrible, I mean, I know it often gets left in here in this column, for which I apologise, but he didn't like this much, Tal. He thought he might not have enough, but he'd have been able to fight in this position. He might well have drawn, at least. I mean, actually, my engine after a little while says it's equal, I think, but maybe it gives plus equals or something. You can see there. I don't know if you can read. It says knight f2 0.53, so you know. Rook a b1 and f3. This was his brilliant idea, very nice idea, and now the guy blundered. Botvinnik blundered with rook takes b2. He had to play rook, bishop takes f3, takes, queen c2, bishop b4 takes, and I think everybody thought that you'd play queen takes, but then it was discovered that knight takes actually is very good for white. In fact, it's winning. I mean, really, knight takes this, hitting the rook, hitting the bishop, take, check here, check. And it turns out that after queen e6 here, check here. I have analysed this at some point. d6 is pointless. I've got some variations which I made with a very strong player in a lesson. If pawn takes, it's an accident. King takes, bishop b5, just threatening to go d6 and d7. here. With bishop e7, bishop c7, bishop g5, trying to go d6, bishop f4, then f4, king, bishop there, king there, just wins. It's an easy win for white. Have to be a little bit careful, I suppose, about. I presume this is pretty easy. Wondering if you can try g5. I mean, you can't allow d6, so let's try g5, f5, bishop g7, d6, check, king h6, bishop b8, bishop f6, d7, bishop here, bishop b5, and black's king is in a cage, and very bad things are going to happen. I suppose you try to push your... I suppose if you do nothing, then you can just bring your king up. So this is completely lost anyway. Okay, so that would have been winning for white, but there we are. Botvinnik didn't, cracked under the pressure and took the queen, and now he's pinned to hell. It's a feature of Tal's games that he pinned his opponent's pieces a lot. That's a very strong move. Bishop checks here, and bishop to there is better than rook d1. Takes here. And white is fighting hard. So that would have been very silly. But bishop f4, knight e2 or rook a1. Takes here, splat. It's beautiful stuff, isn't it? I mean, you have a passed pawn, you do terrible things to your opponent with it. It is disgusting. I assume if f3 you probably play the vicious bishop g3. I mean, obviously rook takes rook would be winning, but bishop g3 looks even stronger to me. And oh no, then there's rook c1, isn't there? So is f3 sort of a move? What's it saying? Bishop d2 is the best one, is it? God. And that is absolutely, yeah, okay. So they got to this position, and Tal had to do a bit of endgame technique, but it wasn't very terrible. You have to try to stop bishop c4 there. Yeah, well, this is really not worth thinking about very much. It's too horrible. Now he gets a passed c-pawn, and he pushes it, as you do. And Botvinnik resigned. So a really nice game by Tal. And there's that one, and I thought I'll give one more. I haven't done quite enough. So here's a game with the David... I thought it was David Gergenidze, I thought. Is that really that right, Gergenidze? Is that right? I'll check. I mean, it doesn't matter. But this guy in the Russian Championship, the Soviet Championship, just did something completely insane. We'll turn the board around again. We'll have Tal. So modern Benoni, which Tal loved. He loved the activity. That's not a great move. You should go rook b8, knight c4, bishop a6 to try to get rid of his horse before he gets it settled there. Knight g4. Now you could just take this if you had any sense. Knight c4, and this is just very pleasant for white. He's got decent control of the position. I don't know, you might try bishop c8, and I'm not sure what you're going to do, if you're going to go knight b5 or not, but it's certainly interesting. And basically black is going to find it very hard to get the activity here because of the huge horse and c4. Guy played h3, and you're playing the best attacking player in the world. You have to consider whether knight f2 might be a move. I mean, I know it might not work, but in fact it works very well. You can't go king f3 or king e3 or king g1 because the queen takes rook check. g3, bishop d4 check leads to mate in a few more moves. King f3, just queen h3, I think, and just slaughter. or maybe king f3. I haven't even thought about it very much. Queen h5 check maybe causes slaughter. So he went king f1, bishop d4, knight d1. And I mean, bishop h3 should have been sufficient to deter white from playing this position. Because if you do, you are gonna, I mean, rook a3 apparently is quite clever. I hadn't even realized that, because you don't play check here and here because of knight f3, and this is probably okay for white. This looks perfectly okay for white. Yeah, knight f3, that's stupid, but you just play bishop f5. And the queen, is the queen actually trapped after queen b4? Bishop d2, I think she is trapped, isn't she? Yeah, she's trapped. And I mean, that's ridiculous. Why would black play like that? But you just play bishop f5 actually, and you get a lot of play. But anyway, in this position, your man played very pretty queen h3. And of course that, I mean, once you've seen that's a legal move, it's almost impossible to resist it anyway. And it happens to be a really strong move, because now you're threatening mate. Bishop f3 is the best you can do, queen h2. And you just can't run. I mean, there are too many pins and things. Knight e3, f5. And I made a comment here, didn't I? I said, and I think this is quite relevant really to how you think about chess. Even without analysis, it's obvious that with no good home for his king and pinned to the eyeballs, white is going to be slaughtered. So you don't really need, I mean, of course you analyse to find how to finish the guy off, but you just look at this position and it's obvious that white isn't going to be able to escape because there are too many bad things happening to him. Everything is awful. So king e2 is a reasonable move, trying to get something. Queen to there. To there. Don't know what happens to bishop d3. Am I missing something enormous? Perhaps takes, and I don't immediately see what happens after bishop d3. That's the problem, that I'm going to use an engine and it's going to say, oh, knight takes d5. Oh my god. All right, yes. Please excuse me, I'm being very stupid. There, so bishop f3 takes is even stronger than bishop c4 check, queen to there check, splat. You don't need to analyse this. He's got two pawns, almost all of white's pieces are pinned, and his king has got no good home because he's miles away from getting sort of d1 or somewhere where he might be able to set up home. Rook e5, rook to there, rook doubles. It's just beautiful, sensible chess moves. Knight takes that. Now, can't play in bishop. We played bishop takes. If knight takes his mate next move, and something awful happened. And he resigned, and I gave a line. By the way, if queen takes c4, I suppose I should give as well. Check. Queen e5 check or something. The pin doesn't matter at all when queen d4. Okay. It's the best move. It threatens bishop b3. King to there, bishop b3. Rook e8 check doesn't help at all. And now you can make like this, which is nice. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it's queen h3 is a lot prettier than this, but there we are. So, a couple, well, three in fact, very nice games by Misha Tal, who was a genius and who loved chess, and is, of course, very sadly missed. He died in the late 1990s, didn't he? He was one of these guys who was so ill for so long. It was a big shock when he died, really, because you just imagined, you know, this guy somehow would manage to soldier on. Anyway, one of my favourite players and a few of my favourite, well, the Saeed game and a couple of my favourite games. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'm going to stop now, and yes, see you in a fortnight's time.